Thank you very much, Turumade, for that background music. Can we turn it off? Just to give, we are 1 minute past the time. What we'll do, we should be able to allow or takes us to 5 minutes on top of the hour. We will start. 2:35 my own time here. We should be able to start. I can see that most of the speakers are in. Hi, Sokola, how are you? Happy New Year. Right, just kidding. Colleagues, thank you. So we'll give 3 more minutes to more people joining in. We're going to have a very robust conversation today. Just as a center, it has a practical implication, not just the European market, but African market for sure. But what is the dimension of the implication is what we will be discussing today. So permit me to allow the next 2 minutes or so, we'll be able to kick off, right? We'll kick off this conversation. An important conversation that is emerging, I must say. Thank you very much. So Tormade, you can give us the music at the background, or you allow us to reflect on the topic or put out the pictures of those that will be speaking. So that I believe there will be a number of questions that will come out of this conversation. So people can, as well, put it together. We can do our best to address it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sand. Good to see you as well. I wouldn't want to return the Happy New Year message. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, it's about the right time to have conversation around this topic, and personally, I'm particularly I'm looking forward to the robust conversations because now and again we continue to see external regulations abroad affecting our own economy here in Africa, and then particularly in this sector. And then, having this conversation at this time is actually very, very important for us to determine, okay, which way then we then go, and then how can we be, be more prepared, in the futures. Thank you, everyone. I see the audience is gradually building up, and yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. Thank you, Mr. Sam.
All right, thank you. Top of the hour now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're setting the ball rolling. On behalf of International Trade and Research Center, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar on a subject that is emerging, appears at first glance to be an European environmental regulation, but which have very significant consequences for Africa trade, manufacturing, employment, and waste management and industrialization. Our discussion today, ladies and gentlemen, will be on Europe ban policy on destroying unsold clothing, implication for Africa textile industry. My name is San Mbakalo. I'm the founder, International Trade and Research Center. I have my colleagues that will be joining me today. In terms of the technical, I have my co-moderator for this session, Aristokola Mlitala, who chairs and leads one of our technical sessions. I have Favor Okereko, which is a program officer at the background. I have Turumade Matthew, Kolawole, who is a technical person as well. So today's conversation truly is timing and could be hardly more important. Because just a month ago, on the 19th of July, to be precise, of 2026, the European Union began applying its prohibition on the destruction of unsold clothing, clothing accessories, and footwear by large enterprises under the Euro Design for Sustainable Product Regulation. The medium-sized enterprise is expected to come under this regime from 2030. You see, why should Africa pay attention? Why should Africa pay attention on this? Because this prohibition estimates suggest that between 4 to 9% of textile products placed on the European market were destroyed before they were used. Consider the number, between 4 to 9% of textile products placed in European markets were destroyed before they were used. This represents approximately between 264,000 to 594 tons of textile every year. You see, this is not just a number. These products have to go somewhere else, henceforth. They may be unsold. They may be donated. They may be resold, but not destroyed. Repaired or restored or recycled. But some may enter international secondary market. Ladies and gentlemen, that is where Africa comes in. That is where Africa enters this conversation. The European Union already exports more than textile in 2025, with Africa and Asia remaining the principal destination region. At the same time, European consumers purchase approximately 8.5 million tons of clothing, footwear, household textile in 2022, according to the numbers. This is around 19 kilograms per person. See, this is where it becomes interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Europe also generates approximately 6.94 million tons of textile waste, equivalent of 16 kilograms per person. This is very significant proportion about household clothing that waste that has not been captured. So this is not a marginal policy adjustment, not at all. We're talking about a very large global material flow. The question is, for Africa, will Europe transition towards textile circularity strengthen Africa's own circular economy? Or will it simply redirect more of European waste environmental burden towards African markets? Our concept notes and our research rightly recognize the complexity. Secondhand clothing provides affordable garments for millions of livelihoods, traders, informal enterprises across Africa economies. At the same time, our government are trying to rebuild the textile manufacturing, regional value chain, and increase value addition and create industrial employment. We must avoid reducing today's discussion to whether secondhand clothing is simply good or bad. The more important issue is what kind of textile economy Africa wants to build. As a center, we've always interrogated this. By the way, we will release a policy brief after this. These issues that has to do with the textile cotton. What the question is, can we establish quality standards so that the genuinely reusable clothing enters our market, while textile waste does not simply cross our borders disguised as second-hand clothing? Can African manufacturers, compete while consumers continue to have access to affordable clothing? You see, under AFCFTA, AFCFTA can help us connect this. Cotton produced countries, textile manufacturers, apparel producers, recycling designers, and consumers into regional value chain. Who helps us? So today's conversation will be having Mr. Nicholas Prophet will help us understand European circular textile economy, what has changed and why it matters for Africa. Our second speaker today, Ms. Sidikat Folami, will bring us directly into African policy dilemma of second-hand clothing, industrialization, and African strategic clothing. As we listen to them, I will encourage us to participate, think about what they are saying. We'll have time for question and answer. So the question will be that how will this impact on our industrialization, our competition, our investment opportunity? By the end of this webinar, we should be able to move from beyond just describing European Union regulation into identifying what African government, business investors, development partners should actually do differently. The practical orientation is central to the objective of today. Africa should not become a destination for someone else's circular economy. Our ambition is to build a competitive and fairly operative ecosystem where once protect livelihood, businesses grow, industries grow, and as well as becoming more affordable. Ladies and gentlemen, there are house rules. As you come in, you off your mic. There will be a time for question and answer. There will be a time for question and answer, and we will want you to use the chat box to write a question. And as well as at some point, we can open the mic and the floor for conversation, which of course you can use your unmute yourself and speak while using the icon to raise your hand up. If anyone says what resonates with you, please kindly also use the icon to give them a digital clap. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the August webinar of the African Cotton Textile and Apparel Center. We look forward to your contribution and participation. At the end of the day, we'll brought a policy brief that will be informative and add value to our ecosystem. At this point, I'll welcome my colleague to introduce the first speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome everyone again. I'll be introducing our first speaker for today. His name is Mr. Nicholas Prophet. He's a circular economics strategist and founder of the Denim Deal Foundation, the founder of VP at a former VP, at PVH Corp. He drives sustainable innovation and denim manufacturing, leading partnership and pilots across 65 plus organizations to scale post-consumer recycled cotton adoption and EU regulatory readiness industry-wide. He will be speaking on the topic Africa's circular textile economy, what has changed and what it matters for Africa. Over to you, Mr. Nicholas.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. thanks for first to invite me. I'm very glad that I have the opportunity to share some insight, and I think it's always good to share different views, from different countries, different culture. Maybe we can see the problems or the solution on different angles. If you could share the presentation, the slides for me, please. So first, yeah, very quick introduction of myself. So I'm Nicolas Proft. I'm French. I live in Spain, and as you said, I worked my entire career on the fashion brand side, and more recently, PVH Europe with big brands. I was the head for denim. So I'm a big passionate for the denim industry, a big passionate for the jeans industry. The topic of today has been well introduced already. What will be the consequences of this new EU ban on destroying unsold garments in Europe? But I think we could look at also others under the ESPR are important that could have also major consequences to your continent. And maybe we could try to describe, I could share some learnings, what looks like a good secular business in your continent, because we are all facing the waste problems, whatever you're in Europe or other continents. Yeah. So please, can you make the next slide, please? So the Done in Deal Foundation. So what it is, who we are. We are an NGO. We are based in Amsterdam. We started in 2020 under the Dutch government initiative. Why Amsterdam? Because Amsterdam is a very particular city in Europe, very small city with a very high concentration of denim brands. So that's why it's all started over there, and I was at PVH at the time. So we are a public-private multi-stakeholder platform, and the objective, our mission, is to scale the use of post-consumer recycled cotton, minimum 20%, to make a new pair of jeans. So in our ecosystem, we link and we bring together all the different stakeholders. First one, the brands, because they are the ones create the demand of the market. So they commit to use this blend and these fabrics to create new pair of jeans. And we bring also all the supply chain and the reverse supply chain actors, so collectors, sorters, recyclers, spinners, mills, manufacturers, and many others, to stimulate the whole ecosystem and to make sure we are shaping our target. Ministries, environment, and regulators are also involved to help us and to reach our goal. We have more than 60 to 70 members as we speak. We started in Netherlands, and now we are present in Germany. We are present in UK, in France. We are looking at South America in terms of brand market. And despite the US political space, I'm still convinced we should go to North American US market via California state. So we believe in collaboration. We believe that the global waste problem, it's a shared responsibility between all the actors, whatever you sit in Africa, in Europe, or in Asia. Yeah. Next slide, please. So what we do? Yeah. So we choose this industry metrics, 20% post-consumer recycled cotton, because it's an industry metrics very easy to track and to trace. So what we do first, we are very pragmatic, practical platform. We align and we agree on standards, technical standards, quality standards, all understood and shared between the brands and between the supply chain. And what we bring together is to make sure that we plug and play the different actors, and we can scale and we can make accessible all these feedstock, fiber, yarns, fabrics to the brands. And we facilitate that. We do a lot of pilots. Can be a R&D pilot, can be innovation pilot. I will give you some few examples. We have some examples in India. We are obsessed with traceability and transparency on this whole operation, because we believe that whatever there is greenwashing regulation in Europe, we need to have more brands communicate on any initiative, but today it's the greenwashing. So we need data proof backup to prove what we are claiming. So that's why we have different partners with LCA to help us to build DPP, Digital Product Passport. With proof and reports, so important that we track the brands. We monitor every year. We publish a report publicly, I could share with you later on, about how many amounts of units that we put in the market. Just to give you an example, the first 3 years we produce over 12 million pair of jeans with 20% post-consumer cycle. We go globally now, and we want to reach the billion by 2030 if we go to a normal plan of expansion. Next slide, please. So the next slide, the topic has been well introduced. So I'm not going to talk about the EU. I'm going to talk a little bit. The destruction ban regulation has been in place in July. The first tier will be the big fish, the big brands, so over 50 million euros turnover per year. The estimation we mentioned before, it's a lot, millions of tons of CO2 emission per year, around 6 million. This is the equivalent of Sweden CO2 emission for a year, so it's not anecdotic. Still allowed beyond this destruction is all the activities of reuse, of resale, or repurpose, remanufacturing, refurbishing. So that's still allowed. The takeover, what's the objective of this legislation, is really to tackle the overproduction issue that we have in Europe. Brands are functioning in a very linear system, and it creates a huge amount of waste here. The objective is to put two sides pressure. One will be on the consumer, and when I say not pressure on the consumer, but how we can raise awareness and education on the consumer responsibility to overconsume and avoid overproduction. And the second burden and pressure will be the business side, so the brand, really to make sure we put the financial pressure. Because if we look at the next slide, please, there is a before the old world used to work and the new one. Before, destruction was possible, destruction was anonymous, destruction. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm too fast. So the old model, so the market signal we have from the EU is really to show that unsold stock was really quietly destroyed, very confidential. We never heard about that before. There is no accountability or traceability, no flow of, no functioning market for the material. And to be very honest, it was extremely cheap for the brands to do this kind of operation of incineration. The new model, what ESPR is forced to open, must flow somewhere trackable. Something important that you have to understand, from February 2027, brands will need to disclose the discarded or unsold textile in specific format. So it will be mandatory, it will be trackable. So the structure end of life flows will become mandatory. So it won't be easy at that time. So that's why brands would have and is going to have to build other take back scheme, a new organization to make sure that they have to be positive. So if we look at the other legislation like extended product responsibility and DPP in the same, EPR is already implemented in France for 12 years. It's in the Netherlands for the last 2 years, and it's going to be implemented in 2028. DPP same deadline with 2028. With this new regulation, we can see that it's a coordinated system designed to name the true cost of overproduction, visible but also financially costing for the brands. If you want to put the pressure on the brands, it's always in the pocket and with the money. That's one of the learning also we understand in Europe. Next slide, please. I wanted to clarify also about this destruction ban regulation. We talk about only unsold new garments or stocks in Europe. So this is not one or second-hand clothes going to be to export to Africa. So there was no confusion. For me, it's two different streams of flow of garments. The question you will have, and I have today, is going to be reduced or increase the second-hand, or it's not second-hand, but it's going to increase the flow of garments arriving to Africa. That's the question, and probably too premature to reply. This slide, you mentioned also some of these numbers. You know these numbers better than me. the status of the second-hand clothing market in Africa. As you mentioned before, Europe is exporting 1.4 million tons of textile outside of Europe, and 43% in Africa particularly. So it's a huge amount. The number here sometimes very highly listed, but a little bit confusing, is the 40% on the right side of Ghana's imports. I know there is some different sources of information, but it's wide cited but actually disputed. So that's the situation of today. I would like to share also with you the next slide, please. The choices. I mean, we talk about the future of what could look like Africa textile industry regarding these different topics, but also when you are. Let's wait the slide. So yeah, in terms of strategic choices, you have the left side is path A, it's business as usual, let's say, the statu quo, so deeper dependency, so more stocks, more surplus arriving to your already saturated markets. We're not talking about the quality also decreasing, but disposal costs, and obviously huge pressure on the domestic industry or textile industry and manufacturers still squeeze even more. And looking for even more disaster, the environmental for your economy. The path B, it's how we could build a kind of, and I see examples in different parts of the world. Africa could build its own fiber-to-fiber recycling and post-consumer recycling sourcing capacity. You're already an amazing producer in Africa. You could become also a huge producer of recycled cotton, farmer, I'll call it, because it's going to be a new commodity for the industry. If you do that, obviously you have to unlock the market, the regional markets, to make sure there is also consumers, there are also brands that you could feed all these different value chain. And I think that's the role of trade policy, trade organization, how you can activate the brand and the consumers. If you look at EU side, the fact that if you have these circular practices, you can still export finished circular products to European brands and European consumers, because you're completely aligned with what we just said with the SPR and all the different legislation on the EPR. Obviously, you will raise education, you will raise expertise in your industry, but you will create a lot of new jobs and sorting, grading, recycling, and obviously different manufacturing parts. The next slide, please. Next slide is a little bit more role and responsibility. And so it's a broader. It's what we see in Europe or different countries. Who has to move what and on what? Yeah, very important. So different stakeholders. The first one, the brands and retailers. Probably the most important one. Yeah, they have to adopt and they have to commit, because if we don't drive the market demand, if the brands don't commit for long-term business engagement, all the rest is falling down. You cannot build anything. You need to create a marketplace. So that's why adoption of such 20% POCR for us in the denim industry, it's extremely important. But this first row, this is where I focus in the foundation, is to make sure brands are committing. To help brands to commit, EU regulator put a lot of pressure, needs to enforce, need to legislate, need to put the pressure on the brands and retailers. Yeah, so that's why ESPR implementation is extremely strategic, binding PCR content thresholds, and also, for example, the NO waste material for textile. That's something I would like to call out here and to pose it, because it's a very important legislation that is building as we speak for you as a country. The EU and specifically GRC, so the Joint Research Center, is currently drafting formal quality criteria that will define when a sorted textile item legally counts as resellable, reusable, or waste. Super important because the revised EU waste shipment regulation will prohibit shipping textile waste to non-OECD countries in Africa from May to 2027. So these criteria are being drafted as we speak now. So we don't have a full clarity. We don't know how they will draw the line in terms of how they define the quality of reusable or quality of waste. So depending on the level they will put down, it could be that there will be more waste coming as usual to your country. But if they raise the bar, it could be that there is a lot of waste could not be exported and will stay in Europe. That's why also Europe is actively acting to engage more recycling possibilities in the countries in Europe itself. So that's very important. The only thing I would say to these days, there is no one organization or consultation from African country to be part of this quality criteria and your direct consequences. Third line, I will go quicker. African governments, trade agreements in Africa, you have a huge responsibility in terms of trade and industrial policy, tariff, investment, incentive, and standard to stimulate recycling and manufacturing capacities.
Sorry, Nicolas, you have 2 more minutes to go. 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has a role. This is a little bit the objective. Do you share the deck? You have a next slide, please, and after we can conclude. The next slide is just more to connect a little bit what we do as a Dead Deal Foundation and where we are in Africa and how we could, it's not to contribute, but how we could help. For example, we have the proven test, a very similar topic in India, where we collect post-consumer, where we recreate fabrics with the textile local industry, and when we re-export to EU, for example, but also to offer to Indian markets. We have also presence in Egypt, in Algeria, with mills consuming post-consumer recycled cotton. That's something we could explore. And we have already all the agreements and partnerships to look at DPP and traceability. So let's leverage the standards we have. Let's leverage the strategy and reporting infrastructure we have. And we could experiment, we could local pilot, how we could help you to this transition. That's it for me. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas. That was a very insightful and highly relevant presentation. I was particularly, excited about that difference that you made between, clarifying that this particular regulation now does not actually focus on second hand. So these are clothes that are not yet worn at all. They are coming from, the brands. They are unsold new clothes. Okay, so that's an exciting, discussion to have, and I think we'll get there as we go on. There's also, a conversation around. There should also be a conversation around where you mentioned that there are some of these regulations that are being discussed presently, and we do not have African stakeholders in those conversations. And at the end of the day, the large, effect or consequences, like you mentioned, of those conversations, we are more or less like on the receiving end of that. So that's also a question mark that we are gonna get into as we go down with the conversations. But again, thank you for that presentation. You provided us an important perspective on this new regulation, this new ban, showing us that it is not only an environmental policy development, but it is also a market and supply chain transformation initiative that could actually actually, have significant consequences for Africa. So I just want to highlight a few key points that I picked. I've mentioned two earlier, so let me just add a few more. So one that stands out for me again is that this particular regulation is a market signal, okay, and it aligns with wider developments of extended producer responsibility and digital product passport regulation. So together, these three regulations, they create a demand for infrastructure needed to manage textile materials throughout their life cycle. So that's like a value and the signal for entrepreneurs out there. That's an opportunity for you to come on and then build some stuffs. Okay. Again, shifting the presentation now, to Africa, you outline two pathways. The first is a deeper dependency pathway, where we continue to bring in volumes of surplus and dead stock, into our already saturated African market, and then placing additional pressure on the domestic manufacturing capabilities. The second pathway is focusing more on development, for Africa to emerge as a circular manufacturing, building capacity in sorting, in grading, in fiber to fiber recycling, and post-consumer recycled cotton sourcing, and then using that material to feed regional value chains under AFC FTA. Finally, the presentation also makes clear that this transition cannot be achieved, by one stakeholder. We have that slide that talks about roles relevant to stakeholders across board. And so now, what does this mean for the Africa CTA sector? And the answer is fairly simple. The Europe circular transition will either intensify Africa's role as a destination for surplus textiles, or create an opportunity for Africa to build new circular manufacturing capabilities. Now, the difference between these two and where we go from here will actually depend on whether African countries can remain or will remain passive recipients of changing global textile flows, or we deliberately, please pack that word, build the industrial, regulatory, and investment systems that are required to capture, value from this textile flow. Nicholas, thank you once again. You have given us such a valuable perspective on what this regulatory shift could mean for the Africa CTA sector. And then I will, in a minute, I will bring on my colleague Favor to introduce our next speaker. But before I do so, let me quickly, remind us that this conversation is interactive. Okay, I see there are some questions that are already being dropped in the chat box, but I just want us to understand that there is a dedicated, Q&A chat box for questions. Okay, so I want to better manage the questions and regular chat. So if you have a question, put that in the Q&A box. And if it's just a regular chat you want to drop, I saw somebody mentioning about some conversations there. So those regular conversations will be in the regular chat box. So for your questions, please let's put them in the Q&A chat box. Favor, you have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you again. I'll be introducing our second speaker for today. She's Sidikat Olami. She's a circular economy leader, entrepreneur, and founder of Martin Leida Limited, with over 17 years of experience in garment production, textile value chain, and circular system innovation. She is also the convener and the president of the Fashion and Textile Recycling and Upcycling Alliance, where she fosters collaboration among industry, government, academia, and development partners to advance Nigeria's textile circular economy. Her work focuses on textile recovery, sustainable production, policy, and enterprise development, creating opportunities for women, youth, and SMEs. Recognized for her contribution to sustainability, she has collaborated with government institutions and serves as a global brand ambassador for the Circular Resource and the Recycling Expo 2026. As a thought leader, she champions practical, scalable solutions that connect circular economy principles with economic growth and industrial transformation in Africa. Today, she will be speaking on the topic second-hand clothing, industrialization, and Africa's strategic choices. Over to you, Ms. Sedika.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me very clear. Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay. So, thank you, Nicholas. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I was even thinking I could just become one of the participants as well, so that I can throw in the questions very well. So, I'll be moving in. Yeah. So the conversation is around the EU ban policy on destroying unsold clothing, and like the first speaker has spoken, he has shared perspective around what this means and what it costs. So now we'll be taking it from second-hand clothing and industrialization and African strategic choices, so that we can see how we can move textile flows into value creation. So the statistics, this is always the first thing, whether staggering or not staggering, it's always there. You can see that from the textiles that are being exported, 43% of it is coming into Africa. So you already know that this is a huge thing. And when we talk about this European Union ban, it's some of these clothes that comes into Nigeria and Africa stays is as on hand. You will still find some that are actually new. That are like let me use the Nigerian language. It's called like the first grade. So they come with their labels, they come with everything, and they are still intact. So that makes you know that even at that, whether it's tagged second-hand market or whatever market, the language that is being used across Africa, some of those new ones, the unsold ones, will still find their way into the second-hand market. And so this statistics is subject to increasing. So, and this is where we use resale, all the REs that can take these clothing from the markets, where from the manufacturers into the market and into the end line. And from all of this, we'll look into what this means and how we can tap into opportunities, and then also to be able to understand what needs to come into Africa and what needs not to come into Africa. So the second-hand economy, when from Europe or wherever the second-hand market is coming from, you have the systems that bring them in after they are being sorted, brought together, built, and then they are shipped into Nigeria, shipped into Africa, shipped into Kenya, or all countries that are absorbing them. And then this goes into those markets where you find the wholesalers, the sell the bills, then you see the market traders, the thrift sellers, whether formalized or the traditional kind of market. You see all of this, and then it goes into the customers. Now, looking at this flow, there are a lot of things that are there beyond just this 5 identified flows. You have transportation, imports. You see the truck, the containers, the shipping, the flight, and all of that. Bringing this into, you have the labor that handles the sorting, the cleaning. Then you have even the repairs. This happens within, when you see between wholesalers, the market traders, and the retailers before it gets into the customers. Sometimes even the customers will still take it back for alterations. And all of this, if you look at this market, one thing that is usually seen as the value is, okay, number one, the affordable clothing. Number one, it's a source of income for some people. It creates employment. It brings market access. These are some of the values that you can tap into from there, but it does not still hide the challenges that are coming from it. So, and each of the outcomes represents its own value. And when we now look down here, you see that when these clothes come in, as they're coming into the country, we have the ones that are wearable. You will still find some of the unsold clothes find their way into this market, like I laid earlier on. Then you find the repairable. Then you find the ones that are repurposed. You turn them into bags, shoes. I'll speak about brands that are working on those aspects later on. Then when we find those ones that can no longer go into all of these values, then the part of recycling comes to play, and that is where recovery and residual happens. So you see, all of these are values that comes across the second-hand economy and into other economy. So in the recoverable and residual, there are a lot of other parts there that either goes into the fashion industry or goes into other sectors or industries that can work with them. Then, so the quality and the residual, quality, residual, and the reality of this flow. So as you see now, like when the goods comes in, or when we find all of this second-hand clothing, they go into either two pathways. It's either they go into the reusable part, or they go into recycling. The part of the reusable is where you find all the upcycling. Mostly, I would call it upcycling and alterations. You find it there. Then you now come to where these clothes now become materials. When they become materials, this is where you find them as raw materials for whatever pathway that you can find it. This is where innovation comes to play. And the second-hand clothing should not just be waste. One thing about circular economy is that circular economy has the opportunity to eliminate waste in whatever concept that you're bringing into it. So once you can eliminate waste, then you make it circular. So how do you do it? Not all clothes will be able to be recycled back into clothes, but can we find other ways by which this clothing can be valuable? And then you can see how the textiles worked across Ghana and also in Kenya, how it supported livelihood and how it is a very good market. You understand? So then I'm going to be talking about the Nigerian aspect. So in 2024, I was really looking into the flow of textile that comes into Nigeria. At that point, actually, I was looking for the flow of waste. I mean, those that are landfill bound or end of life. I took some trips across the country, then I went through some data, and I realized between 2020 and 2020, over 3.9 million tons of discarded textiles flowed into Nigeria. And Nigeria spent about 14.6 million in buying this. Now, when we have waste in Nigeria, why then? So the question now became, why are we now bringing extra? Because it is written that in Nigeria, there is 2.5 million tons of textile waste in Nigeria. And then Nigeria is importing 3.9 million into the country within 2 years. And we have factories that I have visited that has one reason or the other why they still have to bring in this waste into the country. So, and this is where opportunities need to be developed across Africa and in Nigeria. when we collect and we can sort, classify, recover, processing, there are lots of parts within this 6 that can make the Nigerian market compete with this importation that is happening. So the question is now, what is entering? What are entering? According to the UN contract, was rags. So not all of them are second-hand rags. That was labeled. Some are actually reusable clothes, but mostly the terms that we're using in that survey was not really second-hand clothes. So we need to now understand what is reusable, repairable, all those things that will bring this opportunity across these 6 pathways. Like I said in the previous slide, in between this place is where the upcycling market, the second-hand market stays, and from recovery processing to industrial feedstock is where recycling also works. So this will let us know what everyone can handle, the different opportunities that lie, and how we can actually. We went further into looking at how this second-hand market flows across Africa. We're talking about the ban and then controlling what comes into Africa. But the 5 countries that I explored here on what is coming into Africa, as much as the opportunities are, or as much as they could do, it still comes with its own challenges. Like Ghana, for example, there is residual waste challenge. Nigeria, multiple structural constraints beyond second-hand clothing. Rwanda has enforcement and smuggling challenges. Kenya has environmental pressure, and Tanzania has industrialization debate ongoing. More and more and more. These speak mostly around EPR. And it's very interesting while Nicholas was speaking to tell us that there is no African representative in most of these conversations. I believe this is the reason why these challenges are still around most of these countries. This is just 5 countries. It's not only these 5 countries that second-hand clothing or textiles are flowing. There are other countries, and we still have to understand what are their own challenges. Understand. So at times, restriction alone cannot create most of these things. So it's not about maybe we should stop what is coming. It's for us to look into competitive manufacturing, reliable energy and financing. If you look at a lot of innovators across Africa and even in Nigeria, you will see reliable energy a major challenge. Then finance. Finance is somewhat misplaced when it comes to textile circularity or fashion circularity in Africa. Finance is mostly misplaced. And I believe presentation in this conversation to find its way. And this is the reason why some efforts are being made so that we can have the right data, have the representation, have the right conversation. Because if someone from another industry keeps on representing, they will represent textile and fashion from their own perspective, not from the actual challenge that the practitioners are facing. Then we come to technology and to the moving competition does not automatically. So the question and strategy. Traditional model of second-hand clothing, the industry has a major challenge, and as much as the second-hand clothing is doing some part in aspects of maybe practitioners that are putting in 1 or 2, change is industrial and is bigger than just second-hand clothing. So we have industrialization across. When you go into this garment manufacturing, there is the fiber, that is if it's coming from the farm. It can be chemical, it can be natural, goes into the yarn, the fabric, garment, and consumer. Then we have This model with the quantity that flows within this model. We have the important. Look at the Nigeria, fabric manufacturing space. You have we have one or two, and one is epileptic. But you see, flow fabric that is coming from the factories in Nigeria, multiple times of it are being imported. The competition that is crippling is beyond including where you see the trade, the small, you see the retail, when they also with, and then contributes to waste because there's no price system that can add value. It makes whatever cannot flow, cannot find value as waste one way or the other. And this is another opportunity that Africa needs to look into. And then we talk about recovery. Recovery is where we look into waste in the textile and fashion space. This is one key thing that is missing here.
So you have 3 more minutes to go.
Okay. So recovering, and then it goes into recycling. These are opportunities that can actually solve this challenge. So the debate is not simply to ban or to allow, is to look at how much value we can capture in the textile flow that we already have. Then, sorry. Okay. So now you from second-hand clothing to textile value, you have the use, whatever, repurpose. Every stage creates jobs, enterprise, cables, and markets, and find value in all of those parts. And then the secularity is industrialization too. Traditional industrialization responds to making more textile. Secular industrialization keeps more textile value in productive use. So Africa needs both. We have to see so that there is no value lost in all of this chain that we discovered. So recover textiles and industrial discarded textile classification. I will skip this. There may be a question. We'll come back to it because of time. So from textile destination, so there is a need to shift from how much second-hand clothing should Africa allow. We need to focus on what is entering, what can continue, what cannot, the material value that remains, who captures what value, data is missing as well, what infrastructure is missing. With infrastructure, a lot can happen, and how can recovered materials feed African industry. When we have all of this conversation, then we can start considering what needs to stop or continue entering into Africa. So these are, we have FITRA. It has been introduced in the beginning. This is an association that is now bringing together textile and fashion waste managers and recyclers across the country so that we can have the voice, because with this, then we can start having the right representation in the conversations that are going on around. And then, future of sustainable fashion will be built by many local cultures, including the one around me and you. So those who understand the system will shape the market. Those who build without understanding the value struggle to sustain it. Thank you very much. I'm Sedikat Folami.
Sedikat Folami, thank you very much. You told us that you make it as practical as possible. You did. A lot of things jump out for me, and I believe I'm not just the only one. The participants have a lot of questions. When we open the conversation line, they will have a lot to say or to seek for clarification. for me, four important messages that I got from your presentation are these. First, the global textile system itself is changing because we've had conversation in the past on this platform where we talk about certification, and the issue is, I think that came out from that one is that certification is no more like a necessity, it's a competitive edge. So if you say you don't want to certify, you don't want certification, you don't want all those stuff, you remain where you are. And so that is for the cutting when you want to move them through the value chain. But in this secular aspect that we are discussing today, it shows that Africa cannot afford to be passive anymore across the value chain. We cannot be passive. We cannot be a recipient of any change that happens across. So that means that for us, you did mention that Europe alone export about 1.44 million tons of used textile. For emphasis again, what we are talking about is not used, it's unsold, so it's new. And you also talk about the labeling. But one interesting thing about it is that this was 2025 data, right? But 43% of those used clothing find themselves in Africa. 43. I see it. Why 48 goes to Asia? You see, that means this unsold clothing definitely, what we call the first label, would come to Africa. 43 used. Now, unused, we're talking about maybe 80%. How they come in, it's something that we have to discuss. We'll have discussion. As a matter of fact, it's too early to analyze. Anyway, this is just a month, but we will be monitoring this trend. It's one of the things that we'll be doing. So you said the new Europe policy on unsold clothing will potentially reshape the global flow. Of course, it will. One other second thing that came out from your conversation is that second clothing is not simply a trade flow, it's an economic ecosystem. It supports what? Transport, it supports sorters. These are, when we say transport, sorters, these are men doing it. This is livelihood. Someone's school fees depends on that. By the way, the cleaners and the tailors are men, the traders, thousands of informal traders, informal enterprise. Informal enterprise are mostly even women. You know, they sell their wares. These are livelihood. These are, most people even support pay tax. So we cannot say, oh, take them away, because they also make clothing affordable. You know, it's a market opportunity. But this presentation also reminds us that there is a residual waste problem, which of course, you cited an example from Kumasi in Ghana, how 23% of that bale weight was eventually identified as a waste, as a textile waste. You demonstrated the complexity of the policy challenges. We must protect livelihood while also addressing waste and supporting industrial development. That is complex indeed. How do you address this? You want to say we want our industry to grow, but there's some likely we are going to be cutting short. One top thing that came out of your presentation is that banning second-hand clothing alone will not industrialize Africa. Keyword. We're talking about industrial. What is in future? Banning that will not industrialize Africa. This is one of the strongest messages I got from your presentation. You said removing imports may create market space, but does not automatically provide reliable electricity. Our reality, especially in this part of the world, other countries has gone past this, but in Nigeria, our reality, it doesn't talk about affordable finance. You remove technology, productivity, skills, raw material, logistics. No, this is deep. You know, we can quantify, we can put everything together, but there are things that we have to do. If we cannot fight the system, we should have to put policies in place that help. So industrialization itself, as you say, should no longer be understood only as producing fiber, yarn, fabric, and garment. There's also economic value. Your word. In collection, sorting, grading, repair, remanufacturing, and as well recycling secondary material and processing the logistics and technology. You said AFCHO will play an important role, but important is that not every country in Africa needs to perform every stage of the textile value chain. One country can specialize in one, and by the way, we have a project we're ongoing now. But issue I will not disclose it because the funders didn't give an opportunity to disclose that. But it is what we're saying. What I just said, how do we increase the value chain where countries play their role in the area they have comparative advantage? Comparative advantage is not just I have the raw material. It's like you can also have the comparative advantage by the skill. Why the people that have comparative advantage in terms of technology picks your raw material, they bring it back to you. You have the skill to add value to it. But the question is, how much second-hand clothing should Africa allow? Well, what is entering Africa? What remains reusable? What can we repair or recycle? You made serious and very important point. I'm just giving a synopsis of what I got as someone that is also participating and listening. I want to thank you very much, Ms. Sidikat, for giving us important practical view how you see things and possibly our own personal experience as well. Because you gave us practical. We have uncles that work on this value chain. So do we just discard them? If you go to Oyinbo today, these are practical people and a baby at home waiting for their mom or dad to come back home and feed them. Some people are in school, they work. So how do you ensure that livelihood is maintained? You can buy whatever you want, but if you cannot afford this, that is the stuff. So I welcome my colleague. I don't want to make another switch to take over. And it's an exciting conversation for me. I know a lot of people have having to make. Thank you very much. Over to you, Rasekola. Thank you.
Yes. Your passion for the discussion is actually very glaring. You doubled your allocated time for synopsis, but it's okay. So now we are in the Q&A session. I have a couple of questions here. Some of our audience will still have some questions that they are yet to drop, and then so if there's any question that you do have, just signify by using the digital hands up. Just do that while we talk here, and of course I believe the moderators also have their questions as well. So we'll just get into it and see as much questions that we can take as possible. Okay, so there is one here for Nicholas, and then there's another one for Sidika. So let me go with Nicholas. He came first. He says, what do you think about the use of natural indigo on denims? It says about the use of fur with extra long staple cotton to avoid dyeing with synthetic fibers. With appropriate authenticity and traceability, are we going to be able to afford durable and breathable clothes?
Okay.
If I could take that again. Okay, you have that. It's clear. Okay, go on.
Yeah. So natural indigo exists for millenniums. India is one of the best supplier. Unfortunately, the synthetic molecule took over 200 years. And again, becomes extremely cheaper. It's a molecule or a dye extremely cheap. I did myself some trial. I did produce some garments. There is a little bit more demand in India, but also there is also indigo plants, agriculture, regenerative agriculture, even in US. So there is something moving a little bit on that side, but in terms of scale, it's extremely difficult. There is a new generation of molecule. We call it biosynthetic indigo molecules from sugar or agro waste, we produce we're looking more in this direction now at this moment, using this synthetic. So that's for the denim. The fox fiber, I don't know what is the fox fiber. I don't know what you're referring. So I cannot reply to this one. And the last one was what? Sorry.
Okay, the last one is with appropriate, are we going to be able to afford durable and breathable clothes?
Look, durability is also something, a topic we work at, and even EU, by the way, is going to look at how we measure durability in the garments, because they want to counterfeit this ultra fast fashion garment. What we do at the denim durability, we are looking at how we can combine recycled cotton fiber, to introduce and to circularity without compromising quality and durability of a pair of jeans. So I think that's this kind of dimension. It's even more important. Traceability is also another topic we are working at the denim deal. Is how we can prove the origin of the feedstock to the new pair of jeans. What are the system? What are the technology in terms of tracing, in terms of system? How we can, because the regulators in Europe, it's becoming more and more interesting where is coming the waste, and where is coming the waste could also be another eco-modulation in EPR in the future. Origin of waste, if you can prove it, it could reflect on the fee that every brand will pay for the EPR in Europe. So that's why traceability technology will be extremely important, and that's why we are looking also at this kind of details. I hope I reply a little bit on the question of your interlocutor.
Okay, I do hope so too. We'll now go to the next question. I have Ruben Tamba. Ruben, I see your hand. I'll call you shortly after this question. So the question to Silicat goes thus: do you think natural fibers, cotton, wool, and the rest, are better than synthetic ones? If yes, why not encourage people to use natural fibers because they last longer? That's one. Then secondly, says, according to information economics, second-hand market is a market for lemons. The bad will always outcrowd the good one. So do you think there is an ethical dilemma in this market, talking about the second-hand market?
Thank you for this question. So natural fibers, cotton, wool, linen, if they are better than synthetic. So I will say that being better will be a context, because all textiles have their values and they have their challenges. While cotton, wool, linen are the most value attributed to them is biodegradable nature that they have. And when you look into polyesters is highly valuable when you go into industrializations. When you go into material innovation or into end-of-life management or into adjacent industry as raw materials, polyesters play a major role in those aspects. But cotton is mostly attributed to the soil, the friendliness and all of that. Then encouraging people to use natural fibers because they last longer. They last longer if you, in the mass context, both you'll be able to speak for both lasting longer. Although polyester is more directed towards the fast fashion that creates most of the challenges. And look into the affordable market, the polyesters may be able to go further because the biodegradable or natural fibers tend to be expensive. But like Sand was about affordability, not some people from some people to access the cotton will cost them all of the salary to make them have access to clothing. Then for your second question, secondary market is for lemon. The birds will always crowd out the good. So this will be mostly because the market is linear. When the market is linear, it's mostly, but when I think the buy value begins, because it's and there are different industrial pathway, industry, you know, opportunities within it. So if the ethical dilemma market, definitely there are ethical dilemma in all the secular solutions with those answers to the question.
Absolutely, I hope so too. Remember, if you're still unmute your question, be ready to go. When are you still?
I wish to sincerely congratulate those who actually brought the initiative for this. It has been a very one. So, and one of those AFC advocates. Mine is not just a question, a little content to let us know that there is a mega textile transforming company in Benin Republic. All want to understand the past government in Benin Republic did well in establishing that textile transformative company in order to help the transition, because Benin Republic is one of those countries that produce a lot of cotton on that. So to come up that company, which was financed by Affexim Bank, and don't export again to African continent. So that's I think very a very milestone as to the AFCFTA, and we call on all those in the industry to be able to make use of it, so that Africans can actually put on what is being transformed within the continent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ruben, for your contribution. Thank you, like, to what the Republic is doing. You know, I believe many of us are actually aware of that. Okay, so okay, Omolara Akonji, yes, I saw your hands up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think the last speaker had picked my thoughts, because I was thinking in the area of African Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Agreement, that how will this policy impact on it across Africa? And secondly, you know, where I'm very concerned is our custom attitude, to the Nigerian custom attitude. Even if even if a product is banned and it's smuggled in, you will still see it in. There are no consequences for such behavior in Nigeria. How do we treat this kind of thing? How do we, getting, our cotton industry to be more efficient, because they are, it's almost dying, and also in not allowing this circular product to be dumped into our country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Omolara Akonji. You didn't actually mention any of the speakers to answer your question, but I think Sidikat is actually interested in it. She has been thumbsing up, for that particular question. So I will ask her to just go for it.
Well, around the custom attitude smuggling, and to now talk about the trade as bringing in products into the country is one thing, and banning it is another. But then, if it is being banned, is the country ready to respond to and prove what is enough? Nigeria is a large country. And while I was talking about our factories, almost all the factories in Nigeria are dead. You understand? Just one is fully functioning in manufacturing. We have others too, but they work on maybe blanket factories, wools, and thereabouts. So just only few within the country are still functioning. And then we have a growing population. So when there is ban, there is lock, and all of that, are there responses? Can these remaining factories can they produce what is sustainable for the country? That's one. So this is where even the government, beyond the FTA, now that there are subsidies of petroleum and subsidies going to these parts to now enable the cotton or the sustainable products within to be affordable for the large population that actually need it, and also to be able to go around to revive the factories that can work on the cotton. So that's my contribution to what she said.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sam, you appear like you want to make some contributions to that particular one.
Well, we can proceed with time. Because of time, we can move to the next person. I believe Sidikat has responded appropriately about some of these policies ban. When I hear the word ban, most times an implementation of that ban, I'm saying, Sidikat said it, if you ban something, does that translate to
capacity
to replace it?
yeah.
No, it doesn't.
To meet the demand.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I think I have Jack Otieno next. But before I allow Jack to unmute, I want to mention that without a doubt, every one of us we enjoy the presentations of today. I do believe that they actually top notch, and some of us would be interested in having access to those presentation slides. So in a short while, I'll have my colleague in the Africa City Center WhatsApp community, and from that WhatsApp community, you have access to the presentation slides for this webinar and all of the webinars in the past. So Torimade is here. Share the link to WhatsApp community now so that our audience can begin to join straight away. Thank you. So Jack Otieno, you can. I think I remember Jack from the last webinar. So I believe he's a very active contributor on this platform. So Jack, you can unmute your mic now. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Risekola. Wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed insights from the two presenters. Sidikat, this is amazing. You basically pointed out that there are opportunities in terms of how much value Africa can retain from the inflows that will potentially increase as a result of this new legislation by the EU. I think that's amazing, and I think AFCFTA really has to develop capacity to be able to map out and track both outflow and inflow of textiles in Africa, and try to really have local players to capture the potential value that Sidikat you've talked about. Nicholas, I was excited when you talked about traceability that DDF does, and we are experts in traceability around CTA. I'd like to really discuss this more with you. Probably we can do that on the sidelines. If at all you have pilots that you're thinking to roll out in East Africa, we'll be more than happy to really partner with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jack Otieno, and I believe we have exhausted the questions from
extremely complex. That's why we are building technical guidelines to facilitate this technical conversation between recyclers, mechanical recyclers, and spinners. These guidelines today, they don't even exist in Europe. There is not such a handbook. It doesn't exist. I'm working, to be honest, with one of the best spinning company in Switzerland, guidelines, because to make it available to the world. Because as you said, if you don't hand over to the recycler, this is what I'm looking at, it's extremely difficult for them what they have to do. So these guidelines don't exist even in Europe. And we are working since the last 2 or 3 months, 6 months, I would say, because it's extremely technical and requires a lot of knowledge, even the knowledge that we are it's difficult to learn. And it's one of the missing elements to unlock full circularity today, this kind of guidelines. But we're working on it. But it's it's complex. And most of the time, some recyclers, they have their own little sets. We try to bring to the audience, bring to our community some minimum requirements, quality that could help collectors, sorters, and recyclers to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you, guys. I have to jump out because I have another video.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have come to the end of this conversation today, this virtual dialogue. Please, before you leave, Nicolas, please kindly everyone turn your camera. The technical people will take a snapshot, a family digital snapshot of this meeting today. Kindly turn on your camera wherever you are, and just smile to the camera and let me know if you guys have taken the snapshots. Thank you. That's an amazing. The ecosystem the passive receiver of we also can as well define what goes on forward. This is to the end of today's okay, you have done it awesome. And we look forward to see you next month. As we have dropped our WhatsApp community, please do join. We share information that we discuss, and as well for policy we have a pleasant day ahead and wishing us all well. Thank you very much and bye bye for now. Ciao, asante. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you.